People dream of finding a mystical lamp with a genie inside. But, well, let's just say it's a good reason they're usually sealed in there in the first place. Djinn, No Chaser by Harlan Ellison. Read by Karl Wallace. Who the hell ever heard of Turkish period? Danny Squires said. He said it at the top of his voice on a city street. Danny, people are staring at us. Lower your voice. Connie Squires punched his bicep. They stood on the street in front of the furniture store. Danny was determined not to enter. Come on, Connie, he said. Let's get away from these junk shops and go see some inexpensive modern stuff. You're perfectly well I don't make enough to start filling the apartment with expensive antiques. Connie furtively looked up and down the street. She was more concerned with the scene than with the argument itself, then moved it on towards Danny with a determined air. Now listen up, Squires. Did you or did you not marry me 4 days ago and promise to love, honor, cherish, and all that other good jive? Danny's blue eyes rolled heavenward. He knew he was losing ground. Instinctively defensive, he said, Well, sure, Connie, but... Well then, I'm your wife, and you have not taken me on a honeymoon. I can't afford one. Have not taken me on a honeymoon, Connie repeated with inflexibility. Constantly, we will buy a little furniture for that rubber warren you laughingly call our love nest. And little was hardly the term. That veil of tears was criminally undersized where Barbara Fritzsche hung out her flag. So to make my life bearable for the next few weeks, till we can talk Mr. Upjohn into giving you a rise... Upjohn? Danny fairly screamed. You got to stay away from the boss, Connie. Don't screw around. He won't give me a raise. I'd rather you stayed away from him. Until then, she went on relentlessly, we will decorate our apartment in the style I've wanted for years. Turkish period? Turkish period. Danny flipped his hands in the air. What was the use? He'd known Connie was strong-willed when he married her. It just seemed an attractive quality at the time. Now he wasn't so sure. But he was strong-willed, too. He was sure he could outlast her. Probably. Okay, he said finally. I suppose Turkish period it will be. What the hell is Turkish period? She took his arm lovingly and turned around to look in the store window. Well, honey, it's not exactly Turkish. It's more Mesopotamian. You know, teak and silken sounds hideous. So you're starting up again. She dropped his arm, her eyes flashing, her mouth a tight little line. Really ashamed of you, depriving me of the few little pleasures I need to make my life a... She started to cry. The edge was hers. Connie, Connie. She knocked away his comforting hand, saying, You beast. That was too much for him. The words were so obviously put on. He was suddenly infuriated. Now, goddammit. Her tears came faster. Danny stood there, furious, helpless, outmaneuvers, hoping desperately no cop would come along and say, This guy bothering you, lady? Connie, okay, we'll have Turkish period. Come on. Doesn't matter what it costs. I can scrape up the money somehow. It was not one of the glass brick and onyx emporia where sensible furniture might be found, if one searched hard enough and paid high enough and retained one's senses long enough, as they were trying to palm off modernistic furniture in which no comfortable position might be found. No, it was not even one of those. This was an antique shop. They looked at beds that had canopies and ornate metalwork on the bedposts. They looked at rugs that were littered with pillows so visitors could sit on the floor. They looked at tables built 6 inches off the deck for low banquets. They inspected incense burners and hookahs and coffers and giant vases until Danny's head swam with visions of the courts of long-dead caliphs. Yet despite her determination, Connie chose very few items, and those she did select were moderately priced and quite handsome, for what they were. And as the hours passed and they moved around town from one dismal junk emporium to another, Danny's respect for his wife's taste grew. She was selecting an apartment full of furniture that wasn't bad at all. They were finished by 6 o'clock, and had bills of sale that totaled just under $200. Exactly $30 less than Danny had decided could be spent to furnish the new household, and still survive on his salary. He'd taken the money from his minuscule savings account, knowing he must eventually start buying on credit, or they would not be able to get enough furniture to start living properly. He was tired but content. She'd shopped wisely. They were in a shabby section of town. How had they gotten here? They walked past an empty lot sandwiched in between two tenements, wet wash slapping on lines between them. The lot was weed overgrown and garbage strewn. May I call your assistance to the depressing surroundings and my exhaustion? Danny said. Let's get a cab and go back to the apartment. I want to collapse. Turned around to look for a cab when the empty lot was gone. In this place, sandwiched between the two tenements, was a little shop. It was a one-story affair with a dingy facade and its front window completely grayed over with dust. A hand-painted line of elaborate script on the glass panel door, also opaque with grime, proclaimed, Mohandas Mukhar, Curios. A little man in a flowing robe, wearing a fez, plunged out the front door, skidded to a stop, whirled and slapped a huge sign on the window. Swiped it 4 times with a big paste brush, sticking it to the glass, and whirled back inside, slamming the door. No, said Danny. Connie's mouth was making peculiar sounds. There's no family in my family, Danny said firmly. We come from very good stock. We've made a visual error, Connie said. So we didn't notice it, Danny said. His usually baritone voice was much nearer soprano. If that's crazy, we both got it, Connie said. Must be, if you see the same thing I see. Connie was silent a moment and said, Large sea-going vessel, 3 stacks, maybe the Titanic. A flamingo on the bridge playing the flag of Liechtenstein. Don't play with me, woman, Danny whimpered. I think I'm losing it. She nodded soberly. Right. Empty lot? He nodded back. Empty lot. Clothesline, weeds, garbage. Right. Pointed to the little store. Little store? Right. Manifest, name of Mukhar. She rolled her eyes. Right. So why are we walking toward it? Is this what always happens in stories where weird shops suddenly appear out of nowhere? Something inexorable draws the innocent bystanders into its grip? They stood in front of the grungy little shop. They read the sign. It said, Big sale, hurry, now, quick. The word unnatural comes to mind, Danny said. Nervously, Connie said, she turned the knob and opened the door. A tiny bell went tinkle tinkle, and he stepped across the threshold into the gloaming of Mohandas Mukhar's shop. Probably not the smartest move we've ever made, Danny said softly. The door closed behind them without any assistance. It was cool and musty in the shop, and strange fragrances chased one another past their noses. They looked around carefully. The shop was loaded with junk. From floor to ceiling, wall to wall, on tables and in heaps, the place was filled with oddities and bric-a-brac. Piles of things tumbled over one another onto the floor. Heaps of things leaned against the walls. There was barely room to walk down the aisle between the stacks and mounds of things. Things in all shapes, things in all sizes and colors. Things. They tried to separate the individual item from the jumble of the place, but all they could receive was stuff, things. Stuff and flotsam and bits and junk. Curios, Effendi, a voice said by way of explanation. Connie leaped in the air and came down on Danny's foot. Mukhar was standing beside such a pile of tumbled miscellany that for a moment they could not separate him from the junk, stuff, things he sold. We saw your sign, Connie said. But Danny was more blunt, more direct. There was an empty lot there, then a minute later this shop. How come? The little man stepped up behind the mounds of dust collectors, and his little nut-brown wrinkled face burst into a mere-increased smile. A fortuitous accident, my children. A slight worn spot in the fabric of the cosmos. I will sit down here for how long I do not know. Never hurts to try and stimulate business while I'm here. Yeah, Denny said. He looked at Connie. Her expression was as blank as his own. Oh, Connie cried, and went dashing off one of the side corridors lined with curios. This is perfect. Just what we need for the end table. Danny walked over her. When the difference in the aisle between the curios, he could barely make out what she was holding. He drew her into the light near the door. It had to be Aladdin's lamp. Well, perhaps not that particular person's lamp. One of the ancient, vile-smelling, oil-burning jobs. Long, thin spout, round bottom body, wide, flaring handle. It was algae green with tarnish, brown with rust, and completely covered by the soot and debris of centuries. There was no contesting its authenticity. Nothing so time-corrupted could fail to be authentic. What the hell do you want with that old thing, Connie? But Danny, it's so perfect. If we just shine it up a bit. So we put a work in this lamp, it'd be a beauty. Danny knew he was defeated. She'd probably be right, too. Probably be very handsome when shined and brassed up. How much? He asked Mukhar. He didn't want to seem anxious. Old camel trader was so merciless at bargaining when he knew the item in question was hotly desired. 50 drachma, eh? The old man said. His voice was one of malicious humor. At current exchange rates, taking into account the fall of the Ottoman Empire, $30. Danny's lips thinned. Put it down, Connie. Let's get out of here. He started towards the door, dragging his wife behind him. But he still clutched the lamp, and Makar's voice halted them. All right, noble sir, you're a cunning shopper, I can see that. You know a bargain when you spy it. But I am unfamiliar in this time frame with your dollars and your strange fast food native customs, having me sit down here only once before. Since I am more at ease with the drachma than the dollars, with the shekel than the cent, I will cut my own throat, slash both my wrists, and offer you this magnificent antiquity for, $20? His voice was querulous, his tone one of wonder and hope. Jesse James at least had a horse, Downey snarled, once again moving towards the door. 15, Makar yelled. My old children need corrective lenses from too much TV time. 5, and may 100,000 syphilitic camels puke into your couscous, Danny screamed back over his shoulder. Not bad, said Makar. Thanks, said Danny, stifling a smile. Now he waited. Bloodsucker, heartless trafficker in cheapness, pimple on the fundament of decency, graffiti on the subway car of life. 13, my last offer. May the gods of ITT and the Bank of America turn a blind eye to your venality. But his eyes held the golden gleam of the born haggler, at last blessedly in his element. 7, not a penny more, you Arabic anathema. May a weighty object drop down from a great height, finding you to the niggardly thickness of your soul. Connie started him with open awe and admiration. 11, $11, a pittance, an outright theft we're talking about. Call security guards. Get a consumer advocate. Give me a break here. My shadow will vanish from before the evil gleam of your rapacious gaze if I pay a penny more than $6. Let the word go out to every wadi and oasis across the limitless deserts that Mahuntus Makar steals maggots from diseased meat, flies from coarse dung, and the hard-earned drachma of honest laborers. 6, and that's it. My death is about to become reality, the Arab bellowed, tearing at the strands of white fur showing under the fez. Rob me. Go ahead, rob me. Drink my life's blood. 10, a $20 loss I'll take. Okay. Danny turned around and produced his wallet. Pulled out one of the three $10 bills still inside and turned to Connie and said, Sure you want this ugly, dirty piece of crap? She nodded, and he held the bill naked in the vicinity of the little merchant. For the first time, Danny realized Makar was wearing pointed slippers that curled up. There was hair growing from his ears. $10. The little man moved with the agility of a ferret, and whisked the tenner from Danny's outstretched hand before he could draw it back. Sold, Makar chuckled. He spun around once, and when he faced him again, the $10 was out of sight. And a steal, though I'll be the wiser. A hot deal, a veritable steal, blessed sir. Danny abruptly realized he'd been taken. The lamp had probably been picked up in a junkyard and was worthless. He started to ask if it was a genuine antique, but the piles of junk had begun to waver and shimmer and coruscate with light. Hey, Danny said in alarm, what's this now? The little man's wrinkled face drew up in panic. Out! Get out quick! The time frame is sucking us back together. Out! Get it now if you don't want to roam the attorneys with me in this shop, and I can't afford any help. Out! He shoved them forwards, and Connie slipped and fell, flowing into a piece of glassware. None of it broke. Her hand went out to protect herself and went right to the glass. Danny checked to her feet, panic sweeping over him, as the shop continued to waver and grow more indistinct around him. Out! 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 Makar kept yelling. He went to the door and he was kicking them, literally planting his curl-slippered feet in Danny's backside and shoving from the store. They landed in a heap on the sidewalk. The lamp bounced from Connie's hand and went into the gutter with a clang. The little man stood there, grinning in the doorway, and as the shop faded and disappeared, they heard him mumble happily, a clear $9.75 profit. What a lemon. You got an Edsel, kid. A lame piece of goods. But I gotta give it to you. The syphilitic camel bit was inspired. And the shop was gone, and they got to their feet in front of an empty, weed-overgrown lot. A lame piece of goods. Are you asleep? Yes. How come you're answering me? I was raised polite. Danny, talk to me, come on. The answer is no, I'm not going to talk about it. We have to. Not only don't we have to, I don't want to, ain't going to, and shut up so I can go to sleep. We've been lying here for almost an hour. Neither of us can sleep. We have to discuss it, Danny. The light went on over his side of the bed. The single pool of illumination spread from the hand-me-down daybed they got from Danny's mother in New Jersey, faintly illuminating the few packing crates full of dishes and linens, the 3 Cuisinarts they'd gotten as wedding gifts, the straight-back chairs from Connie's Aunt Medora, the entire bare and depressing reality of their first home together. It would be better when the furniture they brought today was delivered. Later it would be better. Now it's the sort of urban landscape that drove divorcees and aging bachelors to jump down the air shaft at Christmas time. I'm going to talk about it, Squires. So talk. I have my thumbs in my ears. I think we should rub it. I can't hear you. It never happened. I deny the evidence of my senses. It never happened. I have these hums in my ears, so I can't hear a syllable of this craziness. For God's sake, Squires, I was there with you today. I saw it happen, the same as you. Saw that weird little old man and saw his funky shop come and go like a big burp. Now neither of us can deny it. If I could hear you, I'd agree. Then I'd deny the evidence of my senses and tell you. He took his thumbs from his ears, looking distressed. Tell you with all my heart I love you. Love you since the moment I saw you in the type of pill at Upjohn. If I live to be 100,000 years old, I'll never love anyone or anything as much as I love you this very moment. Then I might tell you to go away and forget it, and let me go to sleep. Tomorrow I might calm myself into believing it never happened the way I know it happened. Okay? She drew back the covers and got out of bed. She was naked. They hadn't been married that long. Where are you going? You know where I'm going. He sat up on the daybed. His voice had no lightness in it. Connie? He stopped and stared at him, there in the light. He spoke softly. Don't. I'm scared. Please don't. She said nothing. She looked at him for a while. Dead and naked, she sat down cross-legged on the floor at the foot of the daybed. She looked around what little they had. She answered him gently. I have to, Danny. I just have to. There's a chance I have to. They sat that way, reaching across the abyss with silent imperatives, until, finally, Danny nodded, exhaled heavily, and got out of the daybed. Walked over to one of the cartons, pulled out a dust rag, shook it clean over the box, and handed it to her. He walked over the window ledge where the tarnished and rusted oil lamp sat, and he brought it to her. Shine the damn thing, Squires. Who knows? Maybe we actually got ourselves a 24-carat genie. Shine on, O mistress of my Mesopotamian mansion. She held the lamp in one hand and the rag in the other. For a few minutes she did not bring them together. I'm scared too, she said. Held her breath and briskly rubbed the belly of the lamp. Under her flying fingers the rust and tarnish began to come away in spots. We need brass balls to do this right, she said. But suddenly the ruin covering the lamp melted away, and she was rubbing the bright skin of the lamp itself. Oh, Danny, look how nice it is underneath all the crud. That precise instant, the lamp jet from her hand emitted a sharp gray puff of smoke, and a monstrous voice bellowed in the apartment. Aha! It screamed loud on the subway train. Aha! Free at last! Free! As free as ever be, after 10,000 years. Free to speak and act, my will to be known. Danny went over backward. The sound was as mind-throttling as being at ground zero. The window glass blew out. Every light bulb in the apartment shattered. From the carton containing their meager chinaware came the distant sounds of hailstones as every plate and cup dissolved into shards. Dogs and cats blocks away began to howl. Connie screamed, though it could not be heard over the foghorn thunder of the voice, was knocked head over ankles into a corner, still clutching the dust rag. Plaster showered the apartment. The window shades rolled up. Danny recovered first, crawled over a chair and stared at the lamp with horror. Connie sat up on the corner, face white, eyes huge, hands over her ears. Danny stood and looked down at the seemingly innocuous lamp. Knock off that noise. You want to lose us the least? Certainly offspring of a worm. I said stop that goddamn bellowing. This whisper? This is not the hurricane I shall loose, spawn of paramecium. That's it, Danny yelled. I'm not getting kicked out of the only apartment in the city of New York I can afford just because of some loudmouth genie in a jug. He stopped and looked at Connie. Connie looked back at him. Oh my God, she said. It's real, he said. They got to their knees and crawled over. The lamp lay on its side on the floor at the foot of the daybed. Are you really in there? Connie asked. Where else would I be? Hey, you can't talk to my wife that way. Connie shushed him. If he's a genius, he can talk any way he likes. Sticks and stones, name calling is better than poverty. Yeah, when nobody talks to my... Put a lid on it, Squires. I can take care of myself. If what's in this lamp is even half the size of the genie in that movie you took me to see, The Thief of Baghdad, 1939 version. But Rex Ingram was just an actor. They only made him look big. Even so, as big as he was, if this genie is only half that big, playing macho, overprotective, chauvinistic hubby, so humans continue to prattle like monkeys even after 10,000 years. Will nothing cleanse the earth with this raucous plague of insects? We're going to get thrown right out of here, Danny said. His face screwed up in a horrible expression of discomfort. If the cops don't beat the other tenants to it. Please, Genie, Danny said, leaning down almost to the lamp. Just tone it down a little, will you? Offspring of a man stinks. Suffer! You don't know, Genie, Connie said smugly. Danny looked at her in disbelief. He's no genie. What the hell do you think he is? She swatted him, then put her fingers to her lips. This is where I am. No, you're not. I am. Am not. Am. Am not. Am so. Why say you nay? The genie has a lot of power. Genie doesn't shout like that to make himself heard. You're no genie, or you speak softly. You can't speak at a decent level because you're a fraud. Caution! Phew, you don't scare me. You as powerful as you make out, you tone it way down. Is this better? Are you convinced? Yes, Connie said. I think it's more convincing. Can you keep it up, though? It's the question. Forever, if need be. You can grant wishes? Danny was back on the conversation. Naturally, but not to you, disgusting grub of humanity. Hey, listen, Danny said angrily. I don't give a damn what or who you are. You can't talk to me that way. Then a thought dawned in him. After all, I am your master. Ah, correction, filth of primordial seas. There are some jinn that are mastered by their owners, but unfortunately for you, I am not one of them, for I am not free to leave this metal prison. I was imprisoned in this cursed vessel many ages ago by a besotted sorcerer who knew nothing of molecular compression, even less the binding forces of the universe. He put me in this thrice-cursed lamp, far too small for me, been wedged within ever since. Over the ages my good nature has rotted away. I am powerful but trapped. Those who own me cannot request anything and hope to realize their boon. I am unhappy. An unhappy jinn is an evil jinn. Were I free, I might be your slave, but as I am now, I will visit unhappiness on you in 1,000 forms. Danny chuckled. The hell you will. I'll toss you in the incinerator. Ah, but you cannot. Once you have bought the lamp, you cannot lose it, destroy it, or give it away. Only sell it. I am with you forever, but who would buy such a miserable lamp? And thunder rolled in the sky. What are you going to do? Connie asked. Do? Just ask me for something and you shall see. Not me, Danny said. You're too cranky. Wouldn't you like a billfold full of money? There was sincerity in the voice from the lamp. Well, sure I want money, but... The jinn's laughter was gigantic, and suddenly cut off by the rain of frogs that fell from a point 1 inch below the ceiling, clobbering Danny and Connie with small, wriggling green bodies. Connie screamed and dove for the clothes closet. She came out a second later, her hair full of them. They were falling in the closet as well. The rain of frogs continued, and when Danny opened the front door to try to escape them, they fell in the hall. He slammed the door, realized he was still naked, covered his head with his hands. The frogs fell, writhing, stinking. Then they were knee-deep in them, with little filthy, warty bodies jumping at their faces. What a lousy disposition I've got, the jinn said, and laughed. He laughed again, a clangorous peal that was silenced only when the frogs stopped, disappeared, and the flood of blood began. It went on for a week. They could not get away from him, no matter where they went. They were also slowly starving. They could not go out to buy groceries without the earth opening under their feet, or herd of elephants chasing them down the street, or hundreds of people getting violently ill and vomiting on them. So they stayed in and ate what canned goods they had stored up on the first 4 days of their marriage. But who could eat with locusts filling the apartment from top to bottom, where snakes were intent on gobbling them up like little white rats? First came the frogs, then the flooded blood, then the whirling dust storm, then the spiders and gnats, then the snakes, then the locusts, then that tiger that had them backed up against the wall and ate the chair they used to ward them off. Then came the bats and the leprosy and the hailstones, and the floor dissolved under them, and they clung to the wall, textures without furniture, which had been quickly delivered. The male moving men had brought in during the hailstones, fell through, nearly killing the little old lady who lived beneath them. Then the walls turned red hot and melted, and then the lightning burned everything black, and finally Danny had enough. He cracked and went gibbering around the room, tripping over the man-eating worms that were growing out of the light sockets and the floorboards. Finally sat down in a huge pile of monkey urine, cried till his face grew puffy and his eyes flamed red, his nose swelled to 3 times normal size. "Got to get away from all this," he screamed hysterically, drumming his heels, trying to eat his pants cuffs. "You can divorce her. That would mean you're avoided out of the purchase contract. She wanted the lamp, not you," the djinn suggested. Danny looked up, just in time to get a ripe, black Angus minnow muffin in his face, and yelled, "I won't. You can't make me. We've only been married a week and 4 days, and I won't leave her." Connie, covered with running sores, stumbled to Danny and hugged him, though he had turned to tapioca pudding and was melting. But 3 days later, when ghost images of people he feared all his life came to haunt him, he broke completely and allowed Connie to call the rest home on the boa constrictor that had once been the phone. "You can come and get me when this is over," he cried pitifully, kissing her poison ivy lips. "Maybe if we split up we'll have some mercy." But they both doubted it. When the door downstairs buzzer rang, the men from the home for the mentally absent came into the debacle that had been their apartment and saw Connie pulling her feet out of the swamp slime only with difficulty. She was crying in unison with Danny as they bundled him into the white ambulance. Unearthly laughter rolled around the sky like thunder as her husband was driven away. Connie was left alone. She went back upstairs. She had nowhere else to go. She slumped into the pool of molten slag and tried to think while ants ate at her flesh and rabid rats gnawed off the wallpaper. "I'm just getting warmed up," the djinn said from the lamp. Less than 3 days after being admitted to the asylum for the temporarily twitchy, Connie came to get Danny. She came to his room. The shades were drawn. The sheets were very white. When he saw her, his teeth began to chatter. She smiled at him gently. "If I didn't know better, I'd swear you weren't simply overjoyed to see me, Squires." He slid under the seat, still only his eyes were showing. His voice came through the covers. "If I break it in boils, it would definitely cause a relapse, and the day nurse hates mess. Where's my macho protective husband now?" "I've been unwell." "Yeah, well, that's all over. You're fit as a fiddle, so bestir your buns and let's get out of here." Danny Squire's brow furrowed. This was not the tone of a woman with frogs in her hair. "I've been contemplating divorce or suicide." She yanked the covers down, exposing his naked legs sticking out from the hem of the hospital gown. "Forget it, little chum. There are at least 110 positions we haven't tried yet before I consider that. Now you get out of that bed and come on. But a thing I'll kick if you don't move it." Bewildered, he moved it. Outside, the Rolls Royce waited with his motor running. As they came to the front doors of the Institute for the Neurologically Flaccid, and Connie helped Danny from the discharged wheelchair, the liveried chauffeur leaped out and opened the door for them. He got in the back seat and Connie said, "To the house, Mark." The chauffeur nodded, trotted briskly around, and climbed behind the wheel. They took off to the rooted roar of twin mufflers. Danny's voice was a querulous squeak. "Can we afford a rented limo?" Connie didn't answer, merely smiled and snuggled closer to him. After a moment, Danny asked, "What house?" Connie pressed a button on the console on the armrest, and the glass partition between front and back seats slid silently closed. "Do me a favor, will you?" she said. "Just hold the 20 questions until we get home. It's been a tough 3 days, and all I can ask is to hold it together for another hour." Danny nodded reluctantly. They didn't know she was dressed in extremely expensive clothes. "Better not ask you about your mink-trimmed jacket either, right?" It would help. He sat there in silence, uneasy and juggling more than just 20 unasked questions. He remained silent until he realized they were not taking the expressway into New York. He sat up sharply, looked out the window, snapped his head right and left, trying to ascertain their location. Connie said, We're not going to Manhattan. We're going to Darien, Connecticut. Darien? Who the hell do we know in Darien? Well, Upjohn, for one, lives in Darien. Upjohn? Oh my God, he has fired me and sent the car to bring me to him so he could have me executed. I knew it. Squire, she said, Daniel, my love, Danny, heart of my heart, we just kindly closed the tap on it for a while. Upjohn has nothing more to do with this anymore. Nothing at all. But we live in New York. Not no more, we don't. 20 minutes later, they turned to the most expensive section in Darien and sped down a private road. They drove an eighth of a mile down the private road lined with Etruscan pines, beautifully maintained, and pulled into a winding driveway. 500 yards further, and the drive spiraled on into wind around the front of a huge, luxurious, completely tasteful Victorian mansion. Go on, Connie said. Look at your house. Who lives here? Danny asked. I just told you, we do. I thought this was what you said. Let me out here. I'll walk back to the nut house. The Rolls pulled up before the mansion, and the butler ran down to open the car door for them. They got out, and the servant bowed low to Connie. Then he turned to Danny. Good to have you home, Mr. Squire, he said. Danny was too unnerved to reply. Thank you, Penzler, Connie said. Then to the chauffeur, take the car to the garage, Mark. We won't be needing it again this afternoon. But have the Porsche fueled and ready. We may drive out later to look at the grounds. Very good, Mrs. Squires, Mark said. Then he drove away. Danny was somnambulistic. Allowed himself to be led into the house, where he was further stunned by the expensive fittings, the magnificent halls, the deep pile rugs, the spectacular furniture, the communications complex set into an entire wall, the Art Deco bar that rose out of the floor at the touch of a button, the servants who bowed and smiled at him as if he belonged there. He was boggled by the huge kitchen, fitted with every latest appliance, and the French chef saluted with a huge ladle as Connie entered. Well, where did all this come from? He finally gasped up the question as Connie led him upstairs on the escalator. Come on, Danny, you know where it all came from. The limo, the house, the grounds, the mink chain jacket, the servants, the Vermeer in the front hall, the cobalt glass Art Deco bar, the entertainment center with the beam television set, the screening room, the bowling alley, the polo field, the Neptune swimming pool, the escalator, and 6-strand necklace of black pearls I now notice you're wearing around your throat. All of it came from the genie? Sort of takes your breath away, doesn't it? Connie said. I have a little trouble with this. What you're having trouble with, champ, is that Mossad gave you a hard time, couldn't handle it, you crapped out, and somehow I've managed to pull it all out of the swamp. I'm thinking of divorce again. They were walking down a long hall lined with works of modern Japanese illustration. Connie stopped and put both her hands on Danny's trembling shoulders. What have you got here, Squire? This is a bad case of identity re-evaluation. Nobody goes through all the battles. We've been married for less than 2 weeks. We've known each other for 3 years. Do you know how many times I folded before that time, and I don't know how many times you triumphed before then. When I've known you for 3 years, made it okay for me to marry you, to think, this guy will be able to handle it the times I can't. That's what a lot of marriage is, to my way of thinking. Don't have to score every time, and neither do you. As long as the unit maintains. This time it's my score. Next time will be yours. Maybe. Danny smiled weakly. I'm not thinking of divorce. Movement out of the corner of his eye made him look over his shoulder. An 11-foot tall black man, physically perfect in every way, with chiseled features like an obsidian Adonis, dressed in an impeccably tailored 3-piece Savile suit, silk tie knotted precisely, stood just in the hallway, having emerged from open 15-foot high doors of a room at the junction of corridors. Danny said. Connie looked over her shoulder. Hi, Masood. Squires, I'd like you to meet Masood Jan bin Jan, a Masakin Jinn of the Ifrit, by the grace of Solomon, master of all the genii, though I'll be the wiser. Our benefactor, my friend. How good a friend, Danny whispered, seeing the totem of sexual perfection looming 11 feet before him. We haven't known each other carnally, if that's what I perceived your squalid little remark to mean, she replied, and a bit wistfully she added, not his type. I think he's got it for Lena Horne. At Danny's semi-annoyed look, she added, for God's sake, stop being so bloody suspicious. Masood stepped forward, 2 steps bringing him to 15 feet intervening, and preferring his greeting in the traditional Islamic hand and heart salute, flowing outward, a smile on his matinee idol face. Welcome home, master. I await your smallest request. Danny looked from the djinn to Connie, amazement and hopelessness rendering him almost speechless. But you were stuck in the lamp. Bad-tempered? Oh boy, were you bad-tempered. How did she... Connie laughed, and with great dignity the djinn joined in. You were in the lamp. You gave us all this. But you said you'd give us nothing but aggravation. Why? In deep, mellifluous tones that Danny had come to associate with a voice that could knock a high-flying fowl from the air, the djinn smiled warmly at them and replied, Your good wife freed me. After 10,000 years cramped over in pain with a eternal bellyache in the most miserable of dungeons, Mistress Connie set me loose. For the first time in 100 times 10,000 years of cruel and venal master after master, I've delivered into the hands of one who treats me with respect. We are friends. Look forward to extending the friendship to you, Master Squires. He seemed to be warming to his explanation, expansive and effusive. Free now, permitted to exist among humans in a time where my kind are thought a legend, thus able to live an interesting new life. My gratitude knows no bounds, as my hatred and anger knew none. Now I need no longer act as a demon. Now I can be the sort of a freet Rabbi Jeremiah bin Azar spoke of in the Psalms. I've seen much of the world in the last 3 days of humans judged time. I find it most pleasing in my view. The speed, the shine, the light, the incomparable Lena Horne. Do you like basketball? But how? How'd you do it, Connie? How? No one can get him out. She took him by the hand, leading him towards the 15-foot-high doors. Maybe come to your apartment, Masood? The djinn made a sweeping gesture of invitation, bowing so low his head was at Danny's waist as he and Connie walked past. They stepped inside the djinn's suite. It was as if they had stepped back in time to ancient Basra and 1,000 nights and a night, or into a Cornell Wilde costume epic. But amid all the silk and hangings and pillows and tapers and coffers and brassware, there in the center of a foyer, in a lucite case atop an onyx pedestal, lit from an unknown source by a single glowing spot of light, was a single icon. Occasionally, magic has to bow to technology, Connie said. Danny moved forward. He could not make out what the item on the black velvet pillow was. Sometimes ancient anger has to bow to common sense. Danny was close enough to see it now. Simple. It had been so simple. But no one thought of it before. Probably because the last time it had been needed by the last previous owner, it had not existed. A can opener, Danny said. A can opener. A simple, stupid, everyday can opener. That's all it took. I had a nervous breakdown, and you figured out a can opener. Can do, Connie said, winking at Masood. Not cute, Squires, Danny said. But he was thinking of the diamond as big as the Ritz. The end.